Everybody experiences challenges. Nobody's life is perfect. Nobody has a problem-free life. Everybody makes mistakes. Then what makes the difference is how you see failure. And highly successful people don't see failure as an end. They see it as a process of learning. Success is not possible without failure. So everybody has the potential to achieve success one way or the other. Highly successful people actually run towards problems. These people that have learned to focus on the drops of water instead of focusing on the empty cup, they tend to even thrive in the midst of chaos. You find out that while everybody runs away from problems, they run towards problems. Is there a sure way to go about succeeding in this life? Are there principles? Gratefully, I did engineering. So if you've done physics and chemistry, you know about principles. Are there principles, that would work for everybody the same? So I began to read books. I was looking for books to read on success. The first book that I read was Tough Times Never Last, but Tough People Do by Robert Schuller. And the book shifted my brain. And I can still remember the statement that hit me the hardest, the one I struggled with the most in the book. It said, attitudes are more important than facts. That was a brain twister for me. What are you saying? Attitudes are more important than them? I don't get it. I had to think and think and think, read the whole book again and again, and then eventually I got it. What I'm thinking and how I am feeling, they have greater impact on my life. They determine my outcome much more than what is happening to me now. Eventually later, I would read about the wife of a former US president, Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, the things that happen to us are not as important as how we respond to the things that happen to us, something like that, right? How we respond. It's more important than the things that happen to us. So with that, I have, with time, proven that, at least that's in my own life, that the things I can control in this life are inside me. The ones I cannot control are outside. When I focus my energy on the things I cannot control, I feel powerless. I experience negative emotions. But then when I focus on the things I can control, I feel empowered. And I found out the things I cannot control are outside, like the weather or the climate or what the president is thinking. But then the things I can control are inside me. I can control my thoughts. I can control my emotions. And amazingly, I realized life takes me in the direction that I want to go when I focus my energy on the things I can control. So that for me was a major turning point, because from then on, I think I've gotten to understand more that there are principles that have no respect for persons when you apply them anywhere in the world, that they help you to achieve your goals. That book by Robert Schuller, because he made that statement, he said at the conference where he was speaking to farmers in Iowa, they had a bad year, there was drought, and almost all the farmers went bankrupt, and he was asked to come talk to them. And he said he was just finding it difficult to know what to say to them. So when he was introduced, he said he stepped on the stage, still looking for that inspiring thing to say to them. So he was pacing up and down the stage, pacing up and down the stage. He said all the farmers were looking at him, and then that line just dropped. And he just stopped and said, ladies and gentlemen, I hear you had a bad year here in Iowa, but I came here to tell you that tough times never last, but tough people do. And there was an applause and all that. So that story, and then many other stories that I have read. I am a student of the Bible, and the amazing thing is when I read through the Bible, there's almost no situation a human will go through that is not recorded in the Bible, that somebody did not go through. We're trying to figure things out, yet people have been through the same thing. I mean, we need to remind ourselves that it's still the same sun that is hanging out there that people saw thousands of years ago. It's still the same moon, right? The earth is still spinning once in 24 hours. So some things actually don't change. Life is cyclical, right? So I've read stories like that. I read a lot. So I've read a lot of books of people who faced daunting odds and who were able to, overcome those challenges. So I realized that in life, there's this illustration that I give about the cup that is half full. And some people say it is half full, some say it is half empty. And I realized then, again, it speaks to the issue of attitude, because if you focus on the emptiness, then it amplifies your fears and your anxieties and actually creates a bigger problem. Your imagination finds it difficult to spot opportunities. If you focus on fullness, on the full part, you don't focus on what you don't have, you focus on what you have. You tend to realize that everything doesn't go down at the same time in life. The day that happens, you're out of this world, right? The day you exit, that's the day everything goes down. But before then, yeah, a lot of things may go down. You still have something to be grateful for, right? Maybe your health. If you have your health, you still have a lot, right? And all that. You have the power to breathe. You have relationships and so on. So when I read people's stories, I find out that the people that are highly successful, this is one thing that they have, that they always focus on the fullness. Even now, you look at the cup again, let's say it's not half full. Let's say it's even just some drops of water that are there. Now, these people that have learned to focus on the drops of water instead of focusing on the empty cup, they tend to even thrive in the midst of chaos. You find out that while everybody runs away from problems, they run towards problems. Example, the 2008 recession. When I spoke to my rich friends, I found out while people were losing their homes, millions of people lost their homes. They were trying to get whatever they could to buy, right? So people run away from problems. They run, so highly successful people actually run towards problems. So the more I read books, read people's stories, hear people's stories, discuss with people, the more I find out that actually that attitude plays a very big role. Everybody experiences challenges. Nobody's life is perfect. They say the grass always looks greener on the other side. Well, it's because they're doing something to the grass on the other side. Nobody has a problem-free life. So I found out also that this issue of having a positive attitude, looking for the positive side to life, it affects our attitude to failure. Everybody makes mistakes. Then what makes the difference is how you see failure. So I found out that highly successful people don't see failure as an end. They see it as a process of learning. In fact, they believe that success is not possible without failure. And honestly, when I remember what we used to do at the lab, science lab, when I was in high school, I tend to agree with them, because whatever it was we were doing then, they said it was experiment, right? They said we were experimenting. And whatever we were doing, we did with small quantities of chemicals because they were experiments. And then eventually, so there's practically nothing man has invented that did not start with experiments. And then eventually they found how it worked. So which means that actually failure moves you closer to success. So you find out the people that try more tend to succeed more. So everybody has the potential to achieve success one way or the other, because success is just achieving goals. But if one has the habit of running away when something doesn't work the first time, then the chances of succeeding are greatly reduced. I was reading a book on selling many years ago. Then I saw something there. 80% of sales are made after the fifth call. It was a bulb, light bulb. It was like a light bulb just went up in my head. Because I found out that up until that time, I wasn't handling rejection well. If I, approached the prospect and they said no, I moved away to go look for somebody else. But when I saw that principle, 80% of sales are made after the fifth call, I said, oh, wow, I need to stay with the same person and talk to them at least 5 times. Then my chances increase. So, which means I need to prepare to fail 4 times, right, with each person. So if I want to make 5 sales, it means I need to prepare to hear no like 40 times or so. That's life, right? And that's success there. Get ready to hear the no's, get ready to fail, right? Then make failure your friend. In fact, fail faster, right? I was born basically into a Christian family. We went to church, but as far as having a personal relationship was concerned, that didn't come in until I went into college. Amazingly, one of my uncles had just become a born-again Christian. He was a college student and he was like on fire for God. And the first thing he wanted to do was to lead everybody in the family to Christ, especially us young people. So the day my dad took me to college, to resume, he came along. And then at my hostel, he saw all the various groups and clubs in my college. They had put up signs inviting young students to join them. Then he said to me, you see, all those adverts, don't join them, okay? This one for the Christian Union, that's the one you should join, okay? I said, thank you, uncle. In my mind, I was thinking, you just go away. I want to enjoy my life, okay? This is the first time I'm having freedom away from home. And I want to do what young people do. But amazingly, a preacher came on our campus. And this was like 3 months after I resumed college, did a big crusade, was preaching. And then I just decided to have a change of mind, interestingly, and gave my life to Christ. I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior. And it was an interesting change for me because I actually experienced the influence of God in my life. I'll tell you one significant part to it. Whenever I knelt down to pray in school, it would be like somebody pressed play on a video playing cassette. Now, this was a long time ago, this was like 40 years ago, okay? I was a teenager. So I would see myself standing before people to speak, and to teach. Now, that was very remarkable for me because I am introverted. I used to be extremely shy. I found it difficult to look into the eyes of just one person. So to even imagine me standing in front of a crowd to speak was completely out of it. And these thoughts only came when I prayed. So that made me know this had to be the Spirit of God influencing my mind. This had to be God's design for me. Okay, so yes, I was studying to be a civil engineer, but it looks like there's this other part of my life I didn't know was there. Okay, and truly, within a short while, I was elected into positions, in my fellowship in school. That's why the leadership thing started. Before I was out of college, I was leading the whole fellowship, in my college. And then when I got out, in Nigeria, you have this 1-year mandatory service to the nation. Every college graduate goes through it, except you're over 30. And it just so happened for each state, the people in the service, they choose someone to head the whole Christian group for a whole state. I was chosen to lead the Christian group for my whole state, which was very surprising for me, again, because I was so quiet. I didn't know anybody saw me, right? And once you were elected to do that, you couldn't do anything else. That was what you did full time for the 1 year. So, so that's how I got into this line. The beautiful part to it, like I said, is it's been something really, really practical for me because I was able to discover my talents. Okay. I was able to take my attention off myself because that was what made me struggle at the beginning because things were hard, like I said, for my family. I was desperate to succeed. And to succeed meant to have a good job, to have money, to have cars to drive, to have a good house and all that, and be able to travel the world. But, you know, somewhere along the line, an elderly person, a minister at our church, looked at me and said, I want you to read the book. There's something about you. And he gave me the first book I read on leadership. Christian Leadership by Donald S. Altman. Now, for the fact that this was over 30 years ago and the book was already old then, you can imagine how old the book is. But it was the first book I was reading on leadership. And he loaned me the book. So I took a notebook, a small jotter, and I wrote down all the major points in the book. I'll tell you again an inflection point I had reading the book. The author said, those old ideas that suggest that a few people are born to lead, everybody else is born to follow, he said those ideas are dead. He said they were pushed by Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. Yep. He said, but if you read your Bible and you see there that God created man in his own image and told him to have dominion, you would know therefore that every human being has the capacity to lead. Then the author listed the qualities of a leader and said, whoever you are, look at the list. You have some of the qualities already. The ones you don't have, you can cultivate. Honestly, he was speaking to me. For the first time, I accepted the fact that I could lead. I began to consciously develop the qualities of a leader. And Scott, since then, wherever I have been, I've literally just floated to the top. I've been able to develop my capacity to influence people for good. So I came to the conclusion that at the highest level of success, you help other people to succeed. That's also made me big on leadership. Plan as far ahead as you can. Plan 50, 60, 70 years ahead. It doesn't need to be complicated. Just have some basic ideas of where you want to go because there's something they call the law of time perspective. I think it was a Harvard professor that discovered it, Edward Barnes. The longer the time you take into consideration while making your plans and taking action, the higher you rise. So the person who plans for 10 years always rises higher than the person planning for 10 weeks or 10 months. It's amazing. They say it's a law. So think ahead to the end of your life. Then come back, start from where you are, and take it step by step. I think I was too desperate when I was young. I was almost going to break my health. Don't break your mental health, my young friend. 20 to 30, explore. Do all the experimenting you want to do. And then at the end of the decade, review what you've done. You've identified your strengths, your weaknesses, your talents, your opportunities. Then 30 to 40, do more of what is working. Expand it the best way you can. By the time you've crossed 50, you turn around to mentor other people.